Episode of Traveling Through the Portals, folks. Yeah, when you go through a portal, folks, you sometimes don't know what's on the other side, but who better to travel with than my brother from another right here, Dave? Because I'm going to tell you something. I'd rather have him with his PKE meter and his proton pack, me with a predator claw, getting ready to slice open, or just even just explore what could be on the other side. And I mean, this is what it is. We're going to talk about all the cool things in the realms of sci-fi, horror, and action. Because guess what? 70s, 80s, 90s, and the 2000s have produced such great stuff. But you know what? You got to remember where you came from. And we, as the young men that we are, want to talk about that fun stuff. But this is the first episode, so we can't just jump you into the pool and expect you to understand everything about us. So obviously, we're two YouTubers, right? We're two friends, right? We've been friends for a hot minute. We decided that we needed to come together, putting this idea forward about taking what we love and making it appeal for you guys. Now, of course, if you don't like it, that's fine. You don't agree with our opinions, that's fine. You're welcome to have your own opinion because guess what? We have ours. Does it mean you're right, we're wrong? No, but the customer's not always right here. So we have our opinions. We respect yours. Please respect the others in the chat because, some people may not like what you say. As long as we're respectful, it's always fun. But I don't want to sit here just talking with an intro. I want to actually talk about what we're here today. And I remember reaching out to Dave when I was working on the format for this because we have been doing a lot, he and I, behind the scenes. And Dave, I got to bow to him. This has been an amazing process. He streamlined so much of it, and I love it. But we decided that the first episode to kind of get our feet wet, so you guys understand who we are as fans, we got to come up with a top 5 list. So we decided to take the 3 genres this show is predicated on, and come up with lists of movies that fit those genres.
You had to say predicated, right?
Yeah, you like that, right? You like that? I had to use my SAT words every now and then. I got to use them. They make me sound smart. And we decided that if we can come up with these movies, that you guys would get a good sense of what our tastes are, know where we're coming from, and just kind of what we like. So Dave took my list literally, and he went with 5. I went with 3, but then I got my list here, so I got a little notebook.
We did homework, guys. We did homework.
I'm a teacher. I'm going to always give homework. So, and you guys can get homework too. If you guys chime into our Instagram, definitely check out our pod Instagram out.
Yep.
And definitely it'll be in the links after this video is over. So definitely take a look at us.
The links are already in the description below, guys, that you can check out. We have our now you can not just check out our Instagram, but if you want to message us, you can message us at the Outer Dimensions Podcast on Instagram. You can also email us, any sponsors out there, at the Outer Dimensions Podcast at gmail.com. So you guys can always reach us directly right there. But also, by the way, anyone who pops through the chat, if you have your own channels that you want to help, you want to get your word out there, we're always happy. We follow the hashtag We Grow Together. This community is about
Hmm.
helping everyone else out. So anyone who wants to pop through the chat, you want to throw your links in. This is all about helping everyone promote each other. Uh, but yes, we do have lists, and our lists have lists.
And yeah, our lists do have lists, and it's funny because we were backstage talking, and I love one of the things I love about these setting up is we always talk backstage, and it's fun because we just start bouncing ideas off of each other, and we start laughing like, oh, we could pick this one, but this one could. We had a lot of we noticed that our list can cross pollinate across the genres, and
Crossing
because
the streams.
but you're not supposed to. Hey. But I guess we should start off with our, our base concept, which is sci-fi, and obviously science fiction falls into several different subgenres now. But the obvious thing is it's got some sort of alien, some sort of space. Even more now, and I was looking up the definition for it today. It kind of almost fits in with dystopian because a lot of people look at dystopian horror, but I don't really see a dystopian horror setting. Like Mad Max is dystopian future, and Hunger Games is dystopian action, but it's also a dystopian future. So same with Maze Runner and things like that. But when you look at those movies, you see there is some sort of cataclysmic event, some sort of things happen, and
Somebody's
that's
finger that got pulled.
exactly. You never, again, don't cross the streams, folks. But we digress. So, Dave, I want you to go and give me that first number 5 movie that when you think sci-fi, this is it just gets into your top 5.
Well, see, for me, a lot of people have to understand I've watched movies all my life, but my favorite time frame is always going to be the 80s. Okay, I'm an 80s person. One of my now I picked now are we going from 5 down to like number 1 movie?
Yes, we go 5 down to
Okay.
number 1.
Now, what I picked was more of a recent movie, but a lot of it is kind of 80s inspired. That is Ready Player One.
Good book.
Okay, great book. I read the book first by Ernest Cline. There is Ready Player Two, and he also has an amazing book called Armada, which all this is very heavily sci-fi and 80s themed. So if you guys like that stuff, go ahead and check out. That's Ernest Cline is the writer. That's with a C. So go ahead and check him out. I chose Ready Player One. I love the book, but the movie it just screams sci-fi. I mean, if you've seen movies like Gamer, where or like what was the what was the Ryan Reynolds movie that just came out like a year
Free
or two
guy.
ago? Free Guy. It's kind of like hey, you live in the real world and then you kind of work and you do everything in the cyber world in the Oasis. And I love that you can be anything. I mean, at one point he's disguising himself as Clark Kent. Another moment he's driving the DeLorean with the Knight Rider sensor on it. You got people riding the motorcycle from Akira. It's just a big amalgamation, a big mashup of all of our favorite sci-fi action. I mean, at one point, you know, he throws Chucky at someone.
Hmm.
You know, we see Chucky, we see Mecha Godzilla, we see so many different things in there. To me, that just and as someone who grew up playing Atari 2600, who played Pong, who played the old school games, the fact that adventure is used, it's that's how games were. You had to kind of think. We didn't have DLCs, we didn't have cheat codes. You just had to
Mm.
figure things out, and the Easter eggs are some of the greatest things. So, for me, the whole sci-fi element and any movie where you get a zero who gets to be the hero, I'm definitely going to jump on that. So, Ready Player One is my number 5 for sci-fi.
That's a good choice. I mean, Ready Player One, I read the book. My wife bought me the sequel book, Ready Player
Yeah,
Two. Again, if you are into science fiction, Orson Scott Card is another great one
yeah.
because he wrote Ender's Game, which is a terrible movie. Great actors are in it, but a terrible movie.
Harrison Ford.
But Harrison Ford, I mean Harrison Ford, I love Harrison Ford. But if you're gonna look at what
Yeah.
sci-fi was and is, that's a great choice. Now I'm gonna go a different route because see, this movie to me skirts sci-fi, and it kind of touches on something that could be realistic, which would be Jurassic Park. Now, why am I choosing Jurassic Park? It was one of the first movies I'd seen in the theaters as a kid, and it was one of the first movies as I should say as a kid. It was the one that my dad dropped me off at the theater with my friends, and we got to go see it like because he had to buy our tickets. But it was one of those where I was like, man, could
1993.
science exactly? Could I see this really happening?
Oh
You
yeah,
know, could I see Michael Crichton's dream like
or
legitimately
Nightmare.
have the or yeah or nightmare come true? And I never got to read the Michael Crichton books as a kid. I read them as an adult, and I enjoyed the books immensely. And do I like? I think my youngest daughter loves dinosaurs, and she loves the Jurassic World stuff, and she just loves seeing T Rexes running around, and she laughs. Now, mind you, some parents are like, "Why would you show your 3-year old that?" Because it's cool.
Oh, it's
Who
not
doesn't
far
love to see
worse. I mean, come
dinosaurs?
on.
I mean, yeah, I told my wife, I said I was 11 years old and saw Basic Instinct. What my parents are thinking to this day, I don't know exactly. See, I don't know what
Hey,
my parents are thinking, but I do not have a problem with it. But I do now as an adult. But that's a different story for a different time.
I
But yeah,
want to
Jurassic
welcome
Park.
Millennium Workshop and Legacy of a Nerd are both in the chat. Hope you guys are doing great. Welcome to our first episode of the Outer Dimensions podcast.
Welcome, LeBron. I see you in here
Yeah.
too. Welcome, welcome. All right. So what's your number four?
My number four is another. Well, it's an '80s movie called The Last Starfighter.
Oh my goodness, that's a
Okay,
classic.
I can
Love that
watch this
movie.
movie over and over again. Now, the special effects have not held up well, mind you. For those that don't know, Last Starfighter. Long story short, there's this guy who he just graduated high school. He wants to go to college. He gets turned down, and he's kind of like a secondary handyman for this trailer park that he lives in. But he has these dreams of becoming bigger, and his only release, his only outlet is playing this arcade game called The Last Starfighter, where you're like the lone starfighter who's left to take on the Kodan Armada. You're the only one who can save the universe. Okay, well, he beats the game, and the very next day, a older gentleman in a very souped up space looking car shows up, and basically takes him for a ride. And the Last Starfighter, the video game, is for real. It's a recruitment tool. And very soon, Alex Rogan finds himself on another planet, surrounded by aliens, with the reality that yeah, everything is real. He doesn't want any of this. He's scared as crap. Goes back home, finds that there's aliens who are hunting him on on Earth. So he goes back, and he becomes the last starfighter. He teams up with this alien mechanic, Grieg, who is actually played by, I can't think of the actor's name, but the guy who played the head of OCP in RoboCop 1 and 2. That's
Oh
actually him.
God.
It's it's an '80s movie. It's got total '80s kind of crazy adventure to it. I mean, for the time, it had cutting edge like Tron styles special effects to it. If you love instrumental soundtracks for movies, it's a killer one. To me, it's just an. I mean, come on. How many times have we played video games as kids and we wished or we dreamed of ourselves as the hero, the actual character? I mean, how many times did you see yourself as Link? How many times were you Samus in Metroid? I mean, how many times, you know, it's just one of those things. Even to this day, we still do that. But to me, that movie, I can watch it over and over again.
Yeah,
You
that's a
know,
good one.
I
That's
mean,
a real
it's
good
to
one.
me, it's one of my favorites. It was a favorite from when I was a kid. It's still a favorite now.
I can't even argue that one. My number four, and we're not trying to argue our list. We're literally just putting our
Oh,
list
we're
to
gonna
see.
argue.
Of course we're friends. We're gonna always argue. Brothers do. Um, I think my number four has to be another movie that, and Dave and I said this back in again behind the in the green room. We'll say we were talking about like a lot of movies that you could sit and rewatch over and over again. And for me, this like clinched it for me to sci-fi, and it was obviously it's looked at very negatively now. But obviously, I'm going to say it: The Matrix. and I'm gonna say the Matrix saga,
Okay.
not the crap movie we got now.
Not not
That was
not the
not
recent
that one.
one, but we're talking about the original trilogy.
The original trilogy, and I absolutely my
Are
favorite
you including
character.
Animatrix in that?
Animatrix, the
Okay.
video game, and then you'd have to include because if you played the GameCube game and the PlayStation 2 game, you got to see that extra 10-minute trailer that was the bridge between the Matrix 2 and
Yeah.
the Matrix 3, and that was awesome. Um, but when I look at the Matrix, obviously, yes, Keanu did a great job.
Whoa.
Morpheus, come on, Morpheus was like,
I mean,
I mean, Lawrence Fishburne is an actor
I mean,
among
did anyone
actors.
ever imagine Lawrence Fishburne doing kung fu?
Yeah,
You
I
know?
mean, not even just that. You're looking at the two from Pee Wee's Playhouse, folks, with a
Yeah.
Jerry curl, and he killed it. And just as a story, it was very good. It was very anime, and a lot of people at the time look back at it now and said, "Oh, these fights are very similar to like Goku and Frieza, or like you know
Yeah, but
Ichigo
again,
and
those
this
are
one."
examples that we've never had in live action.
Exactly, and that was something that was so well done. Yeah, there was a lot of religious sentiment put into it when they were like talking about like how
The myth.
Agent Smith was the devil, and
Yeah.
that the guy who created the code was God, and that like the world was, it was very dystopian, but it fit in my mold
And
for what a good
it did have
sci-fi
a lot of
action
dark
movie.
connotation at the time because it was associated with, there was several high school shootings, people wearing dark coats and stuff. I'm like,
Hmm.
you know what, that you could have, you Blade Runner could have came out and you would have blamed it on Blade Runner. Okay, it had nothing to do with the story itself.
But the story was freaking solid, and I
Yeah.
absolutely loved it. So the Matrix trilogy is my number four.
No, I mean, let's face it. I mean, you're imagine you're a computer person, and then you find out that the world is nothing but a program. So I mean, yeah, I mean, it's you know what it is? It's part Tron, it's part Terminator. Is, I think, one of the best ways to look at it.
I agree.
Religion aside, I mean, me personally, on a little tangent here, a little sidebar, if you will. Uh, I was raised Roman Catholic. I am not practicing Catholic. My whole thing is, it doesn't matter what faith you have as long as you have some kind of faith, as long as you believe in something, no matter what it is. If
Hmm.
it's, goodness and humanity, great. And who's to say that any one religion has gotten it right? Might not. Who knows?
True.
It's up to everyone's interpretation. Uh, Speaking of interpretations, and speaking of, well, almost like religions, my number three, Luke, I am your father.
Wow. Just so you
Empire.
know, Star Wars did not make my list at all for action or sci-fi.
I mean, for me, Empire, I, I don't care who you are, Empire is the greatest
Greatest
Star Wars movie of all time.
greatest bridge movie. It's the greatest bridge movie. Like it's not. It's like if you were to put Empire and Two Towers, like those are
Yeah.
the best bridge
Well, I
movies
mean,
ever made.
with Empire, I mean, at the end of Star Wars, okay, Luke has a lightsaber. He hasn't really fought with it. He doesn't know jack about using a lightsaber. I mean, all he got was like what 5 minutes of training with Obi-Wan with the little drone that sent the little lightning bolts at him. That's all the training that he had. Oh, and suddenly, like, he's rocking the lightsaber. He can do fights, and of course, he meets Yoda and everything. But first, it's like it seems like it takes years and years later. You know, Luke is a bona fide, like, he's Maverick for the rebels right now.
Hmm.
Han is like, well, I'm out of here. It's a Buffalo winter here. I got to get out of here. There's bounty hunters on my ass. And the whole love hate relationship between him and Leia is, obviously anyone who's watched anything, you're like, okay, yeah, these two are gonna hook up. You know what's gonna happen.
Oh yeah, we knew the love story, and I'm
But
glad that they gave the
the
fanfics.
jealousy kiss right in the beginning is like, and then of course,
That's your
we find out
brother.
what happens later on, and it's like, oh, which is cringe right there. George Lucas knew what he was doing, dirty boy. But I mean, we find out that there are other Jedi's in the universe. We thought it was just Obi Wan. You know, we find out there's other Jedi. We get Yoda, of course. Yoda, masterfully puppeted and voiced by Frank Oz.
May rest in peace.
Yep.
R.I.P.
A great director,
Hmm.
producer, writer, actor. He was in Blues Brothers movies, both the first one and Blues Brothers 2000, by the way. Uh, you know, I mean, come on. We find out that the hero's father is actually Darth Vader. I mean, the whole movie is a roller coaster of emotions. You don't know if Han and Leia and the droid, and Chewie and C-3PO are going to make it out of that asteroid field. At one point, you get Minots coming after them. Another point is like a big, massive space worm that's about to engulf them. I mean, from left to right, you don't know what's going to happen. This is our first on-screen appearance of Boba Fett with all the
Lando
other bounty
Calrissian
hunters.
betrays Han.
Yeah,
I mean, for Cloud City. I
yeah,
mean, that's a huge. That was a huge.
Lando,
That was the true first. Okay, we all everybody
and
says in wrestling, you had Hulk Hogan as the first heel turn. That
no,
was a
no, no,
surprise.
that was
Lando
Lando.
Lando turning on freaking
Listen,
Han.
Lando paid for it. He's still paying for it because he's still peg warming.
That's facts. For all our toy hunter friends and toy collectors, y'all know that Lando you be seeing at Walmart and Target
He peg warms as a vintage card and a Black Series figure. So
forever.
that's. I mean, he's redeemed himself since then. I mean, but we see Han thrown into carbonite. We see C-3PO pretty much shredded, just ripped apart left and right. I mean, we see all kinds of craziness, but the flip side of it, Lando was trying to protect. He was doing deals for his piece of property right there to
Facts, he was.
protect his own land, his own people. So, you know, we we can look at him sideways, but he did the wrong thing for the right reasons, so to speak.
Phil, I'm sorry. I couldn't put any on my list. I'm sorry. There
Exactly,
was
Phil.
other
See,
movies
see,
that made the cut. And you guys will understand why. Like when I get to my number three, you'll understand why my list
but
had to be.
there is so much foreshadowing in this, though. In Empire, like
It really does.
when Luke is training with Yoda and he goes into that one cave, he sees Vader, he takes on Vader, and he sees Vader has his face, and it foreshadows a lot because not only do we find out that Vader's his father, well, Vader chops off his hand. We know that he gets that robotic hand, and he sees that his father has a robotic hand, so it's kind of it kind of brings things around and around. To me, I mean, the revelation that Darth Vader is his father.
It
It
can't be
just,
true.
I mean, it just screws everything up, and and then he kind of commits. Oh, he tries to commit suicide in a way by jumping off the platform, and luckily for him, it must be the Force. Falls, he suddenly, he starts curving and goes into the chute, and he uses the Force to reach Leia, which should have been an indication. Like, why is Leia the only one that's actually connecting with him? You know, it's a deep dive, but to me, Empire is one of the greatest movies of all time. Plus, as a kid, my dad had taped it off of, he recorded it off of HBO, and we had it on this cassette, and I would watch it over and over and over again. Not no
That
special editions, the OG originals, okay?
with the heads all squished so they look like this because this is before 16.9 widescreen,
Yeah.
folks.
Yeah.
This is all
Yeah.
before 4K, 8K, 10K. Just so
Because
y'all.
we had that the HBO like the Friday night the little intro right before the movie starts.
Mhm.
Yeah, we had that on there.
I remember that all too well. So obviously we're going to keep it in the 80s, and one movie that I have owned, I still own. It was a great gift from one of my closest friends growing up. Uh, he got me the one Christmas. He bought me the 5 disc version that had 4 releases of this movie. And when I say this, most people should know the movie I'm talking about, Blade Runner. Blade Runner, by far, quintessentially to any true sci-fi fan, is the epitome of dystopian sci-fi movie. It is a
I
cop.
can't argue that. I really can't. I mean,
No,
Rutger
no one
Hauer.
can.
Harrison
Rutger
Ford,
Hauer, Harrison Ford. Oh God,
Edward James Olmos is in there.
Edward James almost, dude. Freaking, and his career was freaking on Miami Vice,
Yeah.
and then you get him to be a Dama in freaking Battlestar
Oh no no
Galactica.
no no! Whoa 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 whoa! Hold up, rewind. How are you gonna skip over Stand and Deliver?
No, well, I'm not gonna skip over Stand and Deliver because that's a different movie
Okay.
altogether. Because that movie's about
No
keep my
no, but I'm
people,
like
bro.
we're talking James Edward James Olmos going from Miami Vice, but then he did Stand and
Oh no,
Deliver. That
oh he
was
did Stand and Deliver. He did like
he did
800 great things,
so much
and
so much.
he's just a fantastic actor who if I could ever meet, I would love to just tell him how amazing he was. But Harrison Ford
Yep.
took a step out, and here's why I say that: when you watch The Replicants and his kind of film noir style detective that goes eats ramen in this Neo Tokyo U.S. like what was it San Fran Tokyo
Yeah.
and Big Hero 6. That was kind of how America was. It was all these mega corporations, which is kind of a prelude if you follow that universe because of who did it, Ridley Scott.
Yep.
And Ridley Scott, if you know who he is, famous for our friends the aliens and even loosely tied to the predators.
Really goes big. He goes big.
Yeah, if you pay attention to, like Dave said, a deep dive into that movie, and I've seen the American release, I saw the UK release, I've seen, and people say, well, what's the difference? There is 15 minutes of footage that was edited out of the first American
Extra
initial release,
minutes thrown into various cuts, and
and it changes the perception of the
sometimes
movie.
an extended cut can open up and redeem a movie. Most recent example of that is Justice League, Snyder cut.
Snyder Cut did it, and hell, before the Snyder Cut, Lord of the
Snyder,
Rings.
yeah,
Lord of
Snyder
the
cut
Rings.
completely redeemed Justice League
Oh, many
from
people's eyes it did.
from the shit show that was uh, what's
Well,
his name?
because
I
you
can't even
redeem.
think of his name.
Look. We
Josh Whedon.
yeah, but you guys understand. It redeemed. It gave Cyborg a reason because you saw his
Yeah,
motivation. It gave Barry his motivation. There was we could deep dive into Justice League too because that was a great. I think we need to do that, folks. If you guys would like to see us do like a deep dive
Barry
into
has
some of
motivate.
those.
Listen, it gives motivation to Barry, but it doesn't excuse Ezra. I'm just saying.
Oh no, we don't excuse. No, on this channel we will not excuse Ezra Miller. My wife knows I'm going to see the Flash in protest. I'm going to see Michael Keaton.
Yes.
That's the whole reason I'm going to see Batman. Sorry, The Flash is to go see Batman. I could care less about Ezra Miller, but yeah, quintessentially Harrison
Well,
Ford.
also Supergirl in there. I'm just saying. Yeah,
Mm, Batfleck. I get two
she's
Batmen.
kind of hot.
I mean, she's very pretty. I mean, I do follow her on Instagram, but you know, I'm just saying for me personally,
It's. I mean, we never thought we'd get Keaton back in the bat suit. I mean, come on.
and 70 years old, and he's like, "You want to get nuts?
I'm
Let's
still
get
mad that we're not getting the Batgirl movie, which was going to feature him.
nuts." Well, again, folks,
Who knows?
these are
Writing
topics that
campaign.
we listen, folks. We will gladly discuss these things because I love these are deep dives that Dave and I can pick apart and we can really nitpick because I think that these are fun topics that this is kind of what our first episode was going to be. Besides us giving our list and explanations, you guys would be able to say like, "Oh, I want you guys to talk more about this or talk about that." But yeah, Blade Runner as a whole it has the entire story. It's got like a film noir detective style.
Hmm.
It gives you a very deep dive into the characters. I mean, even the sequel 2049 with Ryan Gosling and Batista was amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of people hated on that movie. No, it was like a direct sequel. And what
Yeah.
people
It just picked
if
up.
you like that,
At
go
one
ahead.
point, I thought that Ryan Gosling was like, like, is he like a clone or something? Like some kind of genetic. Like before I even saw the movie, I thought like, okay, Ryan Gosling is he going to be like Decker's son or something? Like I didn't like. I
I thought he
wasn't
was
too
Decker.
sure what
See,
it
I
was
thought
going
he
to
was
be.
Decker's son.
Yeah.
That's what I would have thought too. But I like that he wasn't. I like that the whole concept that you get to
Yeah.
learn about Decker's story and like what happened to him after.
Yeah.
And if you guys do want to take into a little bit of a nerd little deep dive, the One T Corporation
Yeah.
that's from Predators and Aliens. You see a Prometheus suit. You see
Yep.
the box that has an egg, and you see the Predator spear, all inside of Jared Leto's office
You got
in
to have those Easter eggs.
2049. You got to, folks, and that's why I made this movie my number three, because it was it. I can rewatch all four of those movies,
Okay.
and they're just amazing.
So number two, any of you guys in the chat who know me, you're all gonna roll your eyes because you know what's coming. Ghostbusters. Okay,
Wow, I did not expect Ghostbusters to make this.
it is sci-fi. I mean, come on,
It is.
one.
It's sci-fi comedy.
It's sci-fi comedy. I mean, you get these three guys who are kind of like, well, I don't want to say losers, but they're not exactly doing uh, great in the eyes of their bosses, so they get fired. They get their first real experience with a ghost, and they decide, hey, why don't we just go into business for ourselves? We need jobs. We're out of jobs. Let's do
Sounds
something.
like you and me. Let's do a podcast together.
Hey, yeah, hey, uh, stranger things have happened. Not the TV
True.
show, um, but yeah, I mean, come on, you get like three kind of like Bill Murray, who's the average Joe. He's kind of the con guy. You know,
Oh, he's the face. Love him. Love Bill
Ray.
Murray.
Ray is like he's the innocence. He's that friend that doesn't know any better. And then you get the analytical, the guy who's just all about the numbers, Egon. And Ray and Egon, they make this gear. I mean, portable nuclear accelerators on your back. You get to shoot these lasers. I mean, how many of us wanted to be the Ghostbusters? How many of us took a backpack, turned it upside down because like the curved backpacks we had, pretend you had the neutrino wand and you're blasting away. I mean, let's face it, they hire a fourth guy, Ernie Hudson, amazing talents. And I'm glad that he's getting
Fantastic.
that his character Winston is getting more exposure in Ghostbusters Afterlife, of course. They hint a little bit more to him if you watch the after credits. And in this next one, he's going to have a much bigger role. Now,
Of course.
Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, he has a much bigger role. So, I mean, you get four guys who nobody would even take a second look at. And they're suddenly, they save the friggin' world. You know? They save the world, and it's just like, you don't have, I mean, again, I said it before. You give me a movie where you get someone who's a zero and they get to be a hero. I'm down for it. Plus, I mean, those that know me, Ghostbusters is one of my obsessions. I mean, I have a proton pack right behind me right here. Duffman made me the firehouse diorama, so I'm all about the Ghostbusters. And I dress up. I mean, every year I go to the firehouse to do a fundraiser with Hook and Ladder 8. So, I mean, it's a big part of my life. But, sci-fi, it's like, hey, who doesn't want to, strap on an accelerator and, trap some ghosts and
Oh,
chase
we
some
all did
ghosts
that
and,
as kids.
you don't know what you're going to face.
I had
But
my
you know
little
who you're
my
going to
little my
call.
little trap. I had my little trap, and I used to kick it and had a little suction, the little thing where you push it and it would open up with a little flashlight in it.
You,
I
you,
used to
you,
love
you
that.
hear that, guys? His little trap.
My little trap.
Is that what she
Here's
said?
that trap.
Oh,
That's what she said. Oh, all
I
right.
know.
Listen, number two for me, folks. I have to go. I go big. Y'all know me.
That's not what she
Anybody?
said.
Well, no, that's what she said. I go big, and when I go big, you have to go for probably by many to be considered the modern quintessential sci-fi movie, The Fifth Element. Come on,
Corbin.
Bruce,
Corbin, my man.
Bruce,
Corbin, my man. My
Bruce
man.
Willis,
Hey, hey.
Lilu Dallas, multipass.
You
I
don't want
mean,
me to pull out my multi-pass. I have a
I have
multi-pass.
I have one too. I've gotten it at several conventions ago,
That
many years
that
ago.
was on my list. It did not make the list though.
Oh, it made mine. It was number two,
I
and
mean, Gary Oldman,
Ruby
Bruce
Rod,
Willis.
Chris Tucker, Mila Jovovich, who I am got a soft spot, and I love her to death.
Well,
And
I
yes,
I, I I
she
have a
can
not
be
so
in.
soft spot for her.
Oh no, well, same here. We all got every guy's got a chubby for her. Come
Hey,
on, since
now.
Blue Lagoon, Blue Lagoon, and Legend of Blue Lagoon, folks. I go that far back. I go that far back for her.
Did you
And
ever see the movie Cuffs with her and Christian Slater?
yes, I did.
Okay.
Hey. So I'm just saying, I go when I look at that movie and I say I want something corny, but I want something. I mean, the acapella opera scene was.
Don't hate. I have the soundtrack. I'm
I
not making.
I did
I'm
too.
not lying. I have the soundtrack.
It's on my phone.
I'm a
I have it on
soundtrack person.
it's in by far. I think that that movie in the modern era, to many people, they look at that and they're like, "This is the modern sci-fi space opera."
Listen,
Yeah, you could say Firefly would be the current one, and I would agree. But that's a
no, no,
television
no, no,
show.
no. I can top that. Farscape.
Farscape is not a space opera. I feel
It,
Farscape to me feels more like Stargate, where it's more of a, it's in its own
it's one
universe.
long arc. I mean,
It is, but a
it's
space opera can be something like Star Wars is considered a space opera, and I
okay.
don't agree with
Well,
that either.
we can agree to disagree there. That's fine.
I'm okay with that. I respect you for that. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the Fifth Element just it dragged in casual fans, it drags in non-casual fans,
I mean,
it dragged in
you get action, you
yeah,
get comedy. I mean,
you even get magic. You even get magic because the whole
yeah.
concept of the alien stones and that she's tied to this religious cult, and the cult isn't really a bad thing, but they're
And they
trying to
can
stop the end of the
regenerate, and they're
universe.
basically gods. You know,
It had aliens in the weird suits, kind of a la Doctor Who, and it had a lot. It had so many of like Buckaroo Banzai and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy
now,
vibes.
now, do you recognize the priest from Fifth Element?
No, I know who the actor is.
If you're
I
an
remember him.
Aliens fan, you should.
Oh, that was he was the first. He was the first
An Alien,
synthoid.
yes.
See, I remember. I had to. He was the first synthoid. If you guys are reading the current comic books, because Marvel owns the rights to Aliens and Predator now, and they're doing their
I don't
third
know if
run.
they do, because
Yes, they do. They do because
okay,
they
because
they got the rights from Dark Horse a couple years ago, and they just
technically,
released.
Aliens, the Alien Queen is a Disney princess.
Yes, I know. I laughed about that when I made that joke at the comic book store, and everybody busted out laughing when I said that. I said, "Put her in a movie next to Jasmine, and you win." But yeah, I'm gonna go with Fifth Element. So obviously now we're gonna come down to our number one pick, and the number one picks are gonna be probably the best of the best of the best. And quintessentially, I know Dave's got to have. If he doesn't pick the same one I pick, I'd be surprised. Go ahead. Wow, we did not pick the same one. Oh my goodness, folks. I love him,
Listen,
and that didn't even make my top 10.
Back to the Future, the trilogy itself. Whoa.
Wow.
Technical difficulties.
My wife loves
Uh,
Back to the Future.
no, listen.
My wife loves Back to the Future. So
I'm a
yes.
big Back to the Future person. My first cosplay was a mashup of Ghostbusters and Back to the Future. I have a picture of me in front of a DeLorean with Christopher Lloyd. Okay, Back to the Future is one movie I'll never stop watching. I mean, it's time travel. What's more sci-fi than time travel? I
Can't
mean,
really go wrong with that.
and I mean the trilogy. You go from your present to the past when your parents were teenagers. You almost erase yourself from existence. You do what you think will restore the natural timeline. You find out you somehow shifted things, so now your family's life is way better than what it was. You got money now. You're like, hey, wait a minute. There was a crashed up car. Now I have my own pickup. Okay, cool. And then I mean, go Back to the Future too. You got flying cars, hoverboards, alternate timelines where old Biff steals the almanac and creates an evil 1985, and I mean, you're basically wanted. You're almost killed. You go back in time to the same time you did in the first movie to try and make things better. You got double copies of yourselves there that you can't run into. The stakes are way up. And then, right when you think you fixed everything, your best friend gets zapped back to the Old West. So instead of doing what he wanted you to do, you decide to go to the Old West. I mean, to me, it's just one big massive adventure. I love it. I love that, they're using technology that shouldn't be used all over the place. To me, I mean, sci-fi isn't just science. It's fantasy. and I mean, it's just one. It's one continuous story. Like look at.
Really is.
I mean, look at Matrix. Matrix. You have time between the different movies. Back to the Future is just one continuous story, and that's where I'm at. Looks like Dre has to step away, possibly for the bathroom or something. And by the way, guys, this is going to be a weekly podcast we're going to be doing every week. If there's any topics that you want us to cover, you can go into the video description below. You will find links to our Instagram page where you can message us directly there, or even email us at the Outer Dimensions Podcast at gmail.com or on Instagram at the Outer Dimensions Podcast. I hope everyone's having a great night. Looks like we got JJ in the chat. We got Duffman's Diorama. We got LeBron Fett. Hope everyone's having a great time. We got 6 people watching. Want to thank you guys for popping in. This is just our first list, by the way. You back?
Of course. I'm just surprised. I was in awe of what I've seen, and now, after hearing this dissertation, I don't know if my number one
I mean, I
even.
kind of have a whole section of Back to the Future stuff right there. I even have
I
the
mean,
newspaper.
that see, I can't. Oh man. Well, folks, obviously we're picking my number one, and my number one is something that I I think you have to look at sci-fi, and if this doesn't make a list in a top 5 or a top 10, I would be surprised. It is permeated pop culture. Fifth Element permeates pop culture. Jurassic Park, definitely part of pop culture. And this is one movie that I've owned, I've watched, I've introduced it to my sister, I've introduced it to my wife, and they don't understand. My wife had to watch this movie for a class, and I was laughing because I was like, I own it. We got to watch it together. And she fell asleep, and then she asked me for the story. So obviously, what are you wondering, folks? It is Khan,
Star Trek.
the Wrath of Khan, the motion picture, folks. Star Trek 2, the Wrath of Khan. Ricardo Montalban being a genetically altered human, which was banned as part of the science experiments that they were doing during the war, that actually eventually unified Starfleet and created the whole unified star systems, and began the process of not using genetically altered humans in any way. I mean, this permeates the entire
Points
Star
if
Trek
you know what
universe.
year he was launched from Earth from.
I forgot it was shit.
1997.
Go figure. And what's even more interesting is if you watched Star Trek the TV shows,
Space
um,
Seed. Yep.
they've had we've had Section 31, which started in Deep Space Nine. Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Bashir being a genetically altered human in Starfleet, and they had to keep that hush hush. And he was part of the program that was created by that. You also find out Dr. Noonien Singh, who is the guy who created
Soon.
Data.
Nooney and Soon.
Noonien Singh, sorry, created this, and he met him. He actually
He
meets
made the
the
augments.
early. Yeah,
An
he
earlier
made.
iteration of Soon, one of his ancestors created the augments during the run of Star Trek Enterprise.
So see, if
So
you are a true fan of Star Trek, which I am, that movie to me just it speaks to you. You know, yeah, you could go and say, Spock, you know, it's like you will always be my best friend, and that moment moves you. But when you see Kirk on that bridge, and you just see Ricardo Montalban with that crazy David Bowie wig, and he's sitting on that Klingon warbird, and he's like, "Gone!" I mean, that anger, that visceral hatred, was like you
yep.
could not recreate that with Chris Pine and Benedict Cumberbatch. That was not like they tried to do that
Well,
with,
you
and it
no
was
no
really more
they didn't. They had
Spock. with
They,
Spock. So it
yeah,
was what? Oh God, why can't I
Zachary
remember his name?
Quinto.
Zachary Quinto and Benedict Cumberbatch. You can't recreate that same Kirk
No.
vileness that was there, and it was something that permeates Kirk's career. Like if you look at it, Kirk had you know has him has Khan, and then you have Picard has the Borg that stays in his career. So those are things that like whenever they think of Captain Kirk, you think of Khan, and it was why he lost his commission, why he's no longer an admiral. I mean,
Well,
it's like
because of Spock's death and risking everything to get Spock's
well,
body in the next one.
yeah, but that's why he also lost his commission was because of what happened because of the
And
of two
and
and three.
and the irony of all that. Little sidebar. Star Trek 3. Who plays the captain of the Klingon ship?
Wait, the female or was it a male or female?
Christopher Lloyd.
That's right, Christopher Lloyd did play that.
And
Oh
the
shit.
ship that they take from him, they used to go back in time.
That's true. Kind of mind blowing. I forgot about that. See, look at that. I look at the irony.
So
So in a way, we bridged our two fandoms, but
I mean,
I'm gonna
Khan
I can't
is. I
even.
mean, Star Trek 2.
It's
That
pop
that
culture, bro. It's pop
it's
culture.
so. I mean, it's. I'd say it transcends pop culture. And by the way, those who are toy collectors out there, you can go to your local WalMarts and Targets. They have the Khan, Kirk, and Spock in the reissue of the Playmates figures.
I've seen
So if you're
those.
Star Trek fans, I mean that's something you might want to take a
Who
look at.
doesn't want a Ricardo Montalban?
I mean he yes he will always be Mr. Rourke from Fantasy
That's the
Island,
island.
and
Tattoo. The plane, boss. The plane.
from was that Attack of Planet of the Apes? He was in one of the Planet of the Apes movies actually. I think he was in the
Yes, he
second one.
was. I
Yeah,
think it was Attack of the Planet of the Apes.
but so we just finished our sci-fi list. What do we want to move on to next? Horror or action?
Um, I feel like horror would be more of an interest to the fans.
Okay.
I mean, we let's see what the chat says. You guys want our horror lists, or do you guys want our you know, or do you want our action list? And
And
I'm
I
gonna just address people in the chat. Thank you guys, Mr. B, Rebels, Reptiles, and Games.
yep.
Everybody that's coming in, we say thank you. We appreciate you guys coming in.
Yeah, Rebels had a an impromptu stream. He was at 7 o'clock. He did his Wednesday streams. That's if you guys are always looking for a nice good hangout. Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Nice little lead in right before us at 8 o'clock.
Very true, very true. So yeah, if
Mr.
anybody
B says
wants,
horror, and
so we get a horror.
I have to recognize Mr. B. Mr. B is an awesome person. Not only Mr. B Customs on Instagram, but he also supported the Stream for the Cure by donating several Star Wars figures as prizes. He's always a big supporter of that, so I just want to thank him as always. And if you guys aren't following him, go ahead on Instagram and check out Mr. B Customs. He makes some amazing action figures right there. He does some very cool customs right there. I guess I will start with my number 5.
Yes, I'll let you go.
Do you want to play a game?
Saw
Yeah, Saw.
all the Saw 10 movie saga because we're getting Saw 10 this year.
I was just gonna go with Saw 1. I was gonna
I
stick
would
with just the
I would at
classic.
least go to the first three because they weren't
First 3.
terrible.
Okay.
Yeah, the first three weren't terrible. Everything after that was kind of like Scream. You didn't need any more.
Yeah. And by the way, it's the Scream movies. Last one I saw was Scream 3.
I actually saw the
I
recent
heard the
one.
recent one was good, but I
It
just
was
haven't
good.
seen it.
It's definitely you need to see the one before it to get a lot of the references because I didn't see the previous ones, the one with like Hayden Panettiere and all that stuff. So there was a lot of like characters I didn't understand why they were there.
Okay.
So it was definitely not terrible, but Saw, fucking the franchise that has redefined horror and grotesque horror in a
Well, I
lot
was
of
telling my
ways.
buddy at work today. I was like, because I was going over the list with him, get some of his insights, and I was like, Saw. I'm like, I mean, it was a shot in the arm to the industry. You know, I mean, like the Ring and everything is good and all. Like honestly, the Ring is not high on my list at all. You know, there's for me, I grew up watching horror movies. Like you were saying, like you know, your parents took you to see Basic Instinct or stuff like that. When I was 9 years old, that's when my mom met my dad, my stepdad, and he, you know, we would watch horror movies all the time. So I was accustomed at by the age of 10 or 11 seeing people's body parts being ripped open, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 from the 80s. You know, when they were, you know, using people's flesh and, you know,
Dance
for a prize
Leatherface.
winning chili sauce.
Dance Leatherface.
You know, I mean, I watched a lot of twisted stuff that, you know, that's for me. It takes a lot. It has to be original. It has to be a dark story. It really has to get inside your head.
And Saw does that.
Yeah,
I'll give you that. Saw definitely does that for a lot of on a lot of levels. On
I
a
mean,
lot of
you
levels.
think you got through one test and there's like 10 other ones waiting for you, each one darker and worse. So it's
It definitely has levels to it, and I agree with you, Mr. B. It may not. It's not the cup of tea for everybody because I've had very squeamish girlfriends and like guy friends I would take to go see those Saw movies, and they could not hang. Like they actually walked out the theaters because they were just like it's too much.
full
And me, I'm
disclosure. My
sitting there.
wife is not a horror fan.
Same with mine. My wife is not a horror fan
So
or an action
if I
fan.
want to watch a horror movie, it's right here in a
Yeah,
dimension. Yeah.
yeah, pretty much, folks. That my wife and my wife did go see one. She saw it chapter two, and it was the only reason I got her a seat in the theater was because I said
We
it was
saw
based on a book.
Renfield, and my wife was even like squirming. But I mean, there's some pretty gross and bloody
Oh
parts
yeah,
in that movie.
Renfield. But see, Renfield
But
is
that's great.
we get. Yeah, it was weird. I didn't like it. I personally didn't. It wasn't my cup of tea. But that I get it. I get why people liked it, and I feel like Nick Cage is overrated now. That's my personal opinion.
Ho ho!
I know. Yes,
Hot
I do.
take.
Hot take, folks. Nick Cage is overrated.
Hot take right there. Um, well, I mean, you know, if you're going to see a movie with Nick Cage in it, you're not expecting Shakespeare. Let me just put that out
Oh no,
there.
I'm not. I'm
I mean,
expecting
guy
Con
who was
Air.
in Raising Arizona
Con Air. The
with
Rock.
his bad little wannabe Memphis Southern accents, which is
And then
those terrible.
don't forget The Rock. The Rock, dude. Come on.
Come on, the,
Sean Connery.
you filthy swine, the slime of humanity. I mean,
Michael
I mean,
Bain. Michael Bain.
listen, Michael Bain gets a pass in anything.
Because he's amazing. Yeah, he's amazing.
I mean,
He's sort of
calories.
like
I mean,
he's like Sean Bean. He's like Sean Bean. You just gotta give him a pass.
he was in the Abyss. He was in Terminator. He was in Aliens. I mean, he's in everything. I mean, you give Michael Bean a pass on it, and Bean and Sean, what Michael Bain and Bean? What?
Sean
Oh,
Bean. Oh,
they're
oh, my,
cousins.
oh
Oh,
they're family.
just
Oh, you're
saying.
not squeamish? Hey, dude, it's okay, Mr. B, if you're not squeamish. I'm just saying, for me, it's I get why people didn't like those movies, the Saw movies.
Well, I do want to watch. You speaking of Cage, I do want to watch Willy's Wonderland.
That I want. I own that.
You
I own
you
that. It's
own it?
not. Yeah, I bought it on
So
Blu-ray because it was like
you
five
paid for
bucks.
it to be made. You own it.
Yeah, I paid for it,
You're the studio.
and I'm
Okay.
sad. I'm sad. I'm very sad. It's something like what we're gonna talk about in our next episode, which is like the Five Nights of Freddy. It's very akin to that.
Okay.
So it's if you liked Five Nights at Freddy the video games and you like Nick Cage, it's like the perfect marriage. But
Okay.
I digress. Um, Saw definitely is a great series of movies.
No,
For
what's
me,
yours?
I'm gonna go with a tried and true. That these are all movies that have done some sort of trauma to me, personally, folks. So we're gonna go. We're gonna start
Stephen
with
King.
Jaws. No,
Okay.
with Jaws.
Jaws.
I'm gonna go with Jaws
Why
because
you don't
to
like
this
going in the
day,
water?
I do not go in
Dun-dun,
the ocean.
dun-dun-dun.
And I live in North Carolina, folks. So my beaches, and I'm in Charlotte, not in the coast. I'm not coastal Carolina.
See,
Coastal Carolina, we got sharks,
I'm
and
not a
we always
swimmer,
have this.
so I'm good with that. You know.
Oh, I like to swim. I like to
I
swim.
mean,
I just don't want to be in the ocean.
shark movies. I have no problems with shark movies like Deep
Mm,
Blue Sea.
hmm Man, you got to let's go. If you were to just piece apart the level of horror where they make that shark. I mean, granted, it's supposed to be like Spielberg was saying that he had gone into when he was writing this movie. It was supposed to be like a kind of like a mock tribute or a tribute, not a mock, a tribute of Ahab and the
Yeah,
shark and the whale Moby Dick, and it's like this dichotomy of these two polarizing figures. But I love
Richard
more.
Dreyfuss is in it.
I mean, the description of he's like, you see those cold black eyes, like doll's eyes. Hands down, that thing sends shivers up my spine. And I'm 45 years old this July, folks, and that shit still makes me say, I'll go in a swimming pool where there's chlorine. I can see the bottom of the pool. I ain't gonna see no big ass shark gonna bite my leg off. I'm brown. We don't go in the ocean when you know there's sharks. That is some shit we just don't do. I'm just gonna keep it real, and that's why I said Jaws because it's I'm still terrified to this day.
Well, based on that one, let me give you one that scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. Poltergeist.
Oh, that made my
The
list.
the original Poltergeist from the 80s. Okay?
They're
Carol Ann?
here.
Carol Ann's voice coming out of the TV. The friggin' the kid, the brother with his braces when his braces are like just going
Hmm.
all crazy and just, or how about at the end when you get you know the storm is filling the, because they at one part they have a pool that's being dug and being made but it's never
Hmm.
made, and you get like there's all this mud and water and everything, and you fall in there and there's all these bodies, and it's just, I mean it.
It was trippy. It was very scary.
We never see, there was never a movie like that until Poltergeist in the 80s. But then, of course, Poltergeist led to Poltergeist 2 with the creepy ass Reverend dude.
And then they remade Poltergeist, which was
I,
terrible.
I'm sorry. The last Poltergeist movie I saw was Poltergeist 3, which was the last one that
The old
Heather
lady was in.
O'Rourke made before she died. There was a little bit of
Hmm.
a mystery curse with her in the movie series.
Well, that whole series is plagued by
Yep.
by actual
Craig T.
events of
Nelson was the
paranormal,
father. A lot of people know him from Coach.
and from Mr. Incredible
Yep.
and The Incredibles.
Yep.
So I mean that's Poltergeist is number two on my list. Just
Okay.
so we'll
So
get that out.
it's
Poltergeist
higher
was
on
number two.
your list. Okay.
It's a lot higher because of the scare factor for what it was.
Again, these movies are movies that I consider highly rewatchable. So the order, maybe my opinion of some of them, but these are movies that are rewatchable to me.
Oh yeah, I can rewatch these. It's just for
Now,
me, I just know that the fear level is there. Now my number four is not even. I think it's scary because of what happens,
is it
and
Grease?
I'm gonna
Be
say it
honest.
like
Be honest.
it is
You can
Grease.
say if it's Grease.
Because you're the one that I want. No, for me, I had to mention a Wes Craven movie, and Wes Craven, obviously, if you guys know who he is, he's written several books, and he's very big in the horror community. And I know that he did the movie The People Under the Stairs.
Yeah, I mean, well, Wes Craven is part of the holy trinity of horror. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
John.
Anglin
I mean, you got Stephen King, John Carpenter, and you have Wes
and
Craven. I think those are the three that pop in my head when I think
really,
horror.
you don't think of Dean Koontz at least in the as a part of a fatal four way?
I was never into Dean Koontz. Like I didn't read his books or anything, so I really
I mean, I
wasn't
read
into it.
King, I read Carpenter,
Yeah,
I agree with you. Koontz was only had really one or two good things.
yeah.
I don't really think of him as that. But yeah, for me, The People Under the Stairs was that horror movie, and I remember when it came out, I was like right out of middle school,
Yeah.
and there was this girl that at the dance at middle school that wanted me to come over, so I rented a movie. She's like, I'm into horror movies, so I rented Pet Cemetery and The People Under the Stairs, and we sat in her basement, and she had this
I'm sure you
old
did.
house. And I could not make a move on this girl at all. I had no game, no game. Dre was whack. I was more into the horror movie, and I was terrified. And I remember my dad's like, "You idiot! Why'd you rent this movie?" And I was like, "Cause she asked for it, Dad." I mean, the people on the stairs, folks. It's like for those people that hate walking into their basements and always feel there's eyes on them when there's in the attic. That shit makes you say, "Oh my god, there's really people in the fucking stairs. There's people here," and I had that fear. So that's where I went with that.
Or you walk into somebody's house and they got a little closet right underneath the stairs, like some Harry Potter type bedroom. No, I ain't
Fuck
messing with
that.
that.
Yeah, no, no, no. Don't open those. You don't open those doors, bro. It's like there's certain things you
Listen,
just don't do.
there are certain things you don't do. You don't open the doors. You don't drop cake on floor. Don't drop that. No.
You don't walk by sewers. Don't walk by sewers.
Come on,
Mm-mm.
Georgie.
We all float down here.
Um, my number three, it's a tie. And you guys can judge me all day long. Mr. B, I have to disagree with you on that.
Let me see
Blair
what Mr.
Witch
B
is
said.
now a classic. I'm like,
Oh
no,
no, it's not. No, it's not. Found
no.
footage crap movie that it was for that's like VHS or Paranormal Activity. Come
Again,
on, man.
again,
I
my
love you,
choice,
Mr. B. I'm
my,
gonna respect you though,
again, my choices are based on rewatchability. But,
and the actual fear that it puts in your heart.
well, fear
For me,
is
it's me.
fear in a certain sense. It's a tie between Lost Boys and Fright Night.
I find Fright Night to be more funny, and Lost Boys was actually more scary, especially with the antlers. I mean, that made Corey Feldman's career and Corey Haim.
Well, the Coreys,
Yeah, both the Coreys.
yes. I mean, it was a different kind of vampire movie because I mean, like, we are used to the whole Bela Lugosi, Christopher Lee kind of vampires over the years, and then with Lost Boys, we get these like, I mean, you get these punk vampires, but when they're vamping out, they look pretty damn scary, you know.
Yeah,
And of course, the big bad, spoiler alert, is like this guy who owns the video store,
who could eat garlic?
who's like Joe Average, It's like someone you would never expect to be a vampire. And of course, one of the first times we actually see the whole how do they fight vampires? Well, we read comic books. See, comic books are good for you kids.
Always,
Uh,
always.
I
I'll
mean,
say that.
I to me that movie's it's a great movie. Now, Fright Night. Imagine you have a vampire living next door. You're convinced it's a vampire, but nobody's believing you. Like he even the vampires even putting moves on your girlfriend. Your best friend's turning into a friggin' like werewolf. I mean, it's like, what do you do against that?
Go into a bad '80s horror movie about it.
it there,
That's what you do.
well, there was a remake.
Yeah, there was. I didn't
There
like
was
the
a
remake at all.
well, there was a sequel first, but then there was a remake.
Yeah, we need to do a whole episode on remakes, like how bad they were. So there's very few good ones.
Very few. Well,
I'm glad that makes you got a tie for three. I had a straight easy pick for number three.
well, see, I know so many damn horror movies that like literally I could have made a list of 100.
Same here. We both said that backstage that we could have
Yeah.
made these lists could have been 30, 40, 50
So, what is your number three?
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Which one?
All of them.
Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna say the first two though, because those are the scariest of them before they got hokey. Because New Nightmare was I liked where Wes Craven kind of did broke the fourth wall like Deadpool with New Nightmare. But
New
I would
Nightmare.
say
I think that was number 6 technically in the series.
yes, and that was where where he actually
Yeah.
is in it, and Robert Englund plays
Robert
himself,
Englund is himself.
and Wes Craven played himself, and it was like
Yeah.
it was such
Everybody's getting killed by.
yeah, and everybody's getting killed by fucking Freddy Krueger. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But I remember the original Nightmare on Elm Street. My uncle, my parents got divorced, and we were living with my uncle, my aunt. My uncle was the cool uncle. He was the one that we'd like watch all the movies, and if there was like boobs in them or like nudity, he would never fast forward it. He'd tell my aunt get out the room, and then we'd watch it and we'd laugh. So I remember he put that on, and I had fucking nightmares for weeks because I felt like every time I'd go to sleep, I'd hear the clanging of the scraping on the walls, and I mean, it was truly the boogeyman
Yeah,
in
but
the
see,
most
Freddy was
horrifying way.
just yeah, but Freddy was just he was a fun kind of boogeyman though.
No, man. Now,
With
okay, now if we
with
go to
his
the new
quips,
Nightmare on Elm Street,
with his
are we
quips
gonna
though.
go? All right, are we? His quips were funny in the later movies. I feel like in the first two movies they established him as you like a heel, like a true heel villain.
Yeah.
Like you did not want to mess with him. Later on, he was like a fucking joke. I was like, oh, Ash fought him in the comics.
Well,
It's
Freddy and Jason, man.
and that was another Jason. See, Jason to me wasn't nearly as scary. Like Michael
Jason was a
Myers.
punk in that movie.
Oh yeah, they punked him.
Yeah.
But then again, Friday the 13th wasn't scary to me at all. Neither was Halloween. But Nightmare on Elm Street for me represented if you fell asleep, you died in your dreams,
Yeah.
and that shit scared the hell out of me. That's why. And
And
my
first
number
one
two,
of
we're
his
gonna
first
bypass.
victims was Johnny Depp.
Yep, but we're gonna bypass my number two because it's Poltergeist. So,
Okay.
because I already said it was Poltergeist. So, what's
This
your
one
number two?
is this is a movie me and my brothers will watch over and over again. House of a Thousand Corpses.
Oh God, quintessentially, I mean, you can never go wrong with
Rob
Rob Zombie.
Rob Zombie's best movie probably, arguably. You know, Hills Have Eyes and House of a
Devil's
Thousand
Rejects.
Corpses. Huh?
I mean, the Devil's Rejects
Yeah,
doesn't make that.
yeah. I'll include that with that because like his recent stuff, we're not even going to
Oh,
talk
all
about
his
the
recent stuff
monsters.
is terrible. It's just to get his wife in
Sold out.
movies.
What? Sold
I
out?
said that's
What?
all. Yeah, sold out. Sold out.
I mean,
Love him though.
uh, uh, Duffman will appreciate this. One of my favorite character from House of a Thousand Corpses is Captain Spaulding because
Spalding.
we have a friend on YouTube here,
Yep.
Captain Spaulding.
He follows
So
me too. He's a great dude. Love
yep,
him. Actually, follow him on Instagram, folks. He's a very cool guy to talk to.
because I can't remember the actor's name. Rest in peace, because he just passed he passed away a year ago.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, because he was fuck you, fuck your mama, fuck your sister, fuck your grandmama. I mean, the whole movie. I mean, Rob Zombie, like, nope. Like, wait a minute, you're talking about the rocker? Like, yeah, the rocker.
Mhm.
Nobody thought
Edges.
he was
Hey,
worth
Rob
anything.
Zombie, Astro Creep 3000, folks.
Yeah,
Never gonna stop. Yeah, never gonna stop. Edge's music from the
yep.
at the post Attitude era.
Dragula. I mean, come on. It's Zombie's a good director. I think he just kind of lost his vibe. He needs to just get it back. You know.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, House of
I
a
mean,
Thousand Corpses. That's. I
I
mean,
like that. That
it's
was a
just.
good movie.
It's a very twisted movie too.
But it's something that could see. I think it's also scary in the fact that like
Was it
it's
Rainn
shit that
Wilson in
zombie.
it?
Yes, Rainn Wilson wasn't
Yeah.
that. That's something that a lot of people don't realize you could see happening. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh yeah.
There are people, if you follow some of the really interesting YouTubers and like vloggers out there that talk about these serial killers that exist, folks, there are people that are like that sick in the head that do these sorts of things. And they exist. So that to me represents what truly is a
Yeah, and
horror.
those are the type of
It's a
people
scary.
who will dip their wings in ranch. You know, I'm sorry, but those people exist.
When you're lactose intolerant, fuck that. You put barbecue sauce on that shit.
Blue cheese if you're in Buffalo. Speaking of the man, Captain Spaulding just appeared in the chat.
Oh,
We
hello.
just summoned
We
you.
summoned you. We literally summoned you.
I
Through
was
the
just
portal
talking
he
about
comes.
how my favorite character from one of my favorite characters from House of the Thousand Corpses is your namesake, Captain Spaulding. He says
And
Evil Dead
he
Rise
is.
is another good one. I haven't seen that. I do want to see it at some
Ah.
point. Well, I'm an Evil Dead person.
I love Evil Dead too, and I'm gonna go like this.
And I didn't choose Evil Dead because it would be such an obvious one for me. Because I'm a big cheesy Evil Dead fan, but I just love that cheesy kind of humor. I chose my number two. You said yours was
Poltergeist. And
Poltergeist.
I'll tell
Okay,
you what my number one is.
what is
I'll
your
tell you.
number one?
I had to go to the classics, and I had to look at what like. Now, mind you, there was a tie, because I, to me, what truly fucking terrifies me.
It was the Care Bears movie, wasn't it? Be honest.
Yes, it is. Anybody that knows me knows I hate clowns. I am terrified of clowns. I I'm a grown ass man
uh,
that is terrified of clowns.
are we talking uh, Killer Clowns or are we talking
Tim
about it?
no Tim Curry, original It with John Ritter.
Okay, I'm going to have to take pictures at the end of June. Nickel City Con here in Buffalo, New York. They are going to have the original clown outfit from
No thanks.
it.
I'm good with that. I love you. I love you.
No,
You can
no, no,
just you can
no. Just the outfit. Just the outfit is there.
I'm good. I'm good. No, I'm good. You can just it scarred me as a child. Like my mom and I had to sleep in my parents' room for a while because they bought me clown stuff and they put it in my bedroom. I couldn't sleep for weeks. We had to basically tear it down and put superhero wallpaper up and put it in my room as a kid. I
My
will not take my
sister
kids to go see
collected
clowns.
clowns. She had an entire wall of
Oh,
like the little, you go to the carnivals, you get the
yeah, you get
little
a little
wind up
no,
clowns
no,
that play
no, 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 no,
music.
no, 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 no. I'm good. The only other movie that I can equate that I had to look at what scared me just as much, and this comes from and we're both very similar Roman Catholic, was The Exorcist. I remember watching The Exorcist, and we're not talking like the tame Exorcist. I'm talking the Exorcist where she uses the crucifix to pleasure herself. We're talking not just the pea soup, ha ha he he ha ha. We're talking like the actual. I delved into the mythology and understanding the
Okay.
church's actual views on looking for demons and the way
Well,
the
I'm not
world
gonna want that
works.
crucifix back now. Wait, wait,
I,
wait,
I,
wait. I don't know.
but yeah, those were the two movies. And like I said, every movie on my horror list was something that I can rewatch,
Okay. Now,
but it scared me.
my number one. Now, I kept my mouth shut because I was attacked by you just now.
I triggered you.
Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors.
Terry Farrell, really? You have Terry Farrell from freaking Deep Space Nine show up to be the heroine, which I'm glad that they made a female lead carry over that wasn't a blonde and with big boobs
Terry,
because
she
Terry
wasn't.
Farrell was in
She
that. Yes,
was
she was.
Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Okay.
Yes, she
Oh, we're
was.
going to IMDb, folks. I don't remember Terry being in that. By the way, my last name is Farrell. Exact
I,
same spelling
I,
too. Let's just go to the. Let's go to IMDb.
I'm on there
Nightmare.
right now. Damn, she looks amazing.
I loved her on Deep Space Nine, but she was also in I think the third or second or third Hellraiser actually.
Yes, she was. Hellraiser 3. She was in Quantum Leap.
Yeah, she played Al Calvici's girlfriend Lisa, who was killed and then wasn't killed. Do you
Was I
really want to
wrong?
test me?
Was I
Uh,
really wrong? That she was. I thought she was in that
she
movie.
wasn't. No, you had Nancy. Heather Langenkamp was in that one.
There was a brunette in that series, though. I know
Uh,
I'm not
a
crazy.
girl by name of Taryn, played by Jennifer Rubin.
Okay.
Oh, guess who was in that one?
Who?
I am Morpheus. Lawrence
Lawrence
Fishburne was in that
Fishburne?
joint. Yeah,
Get out.
I'm
Kind of
looking at it
funny
right
to see
now.
that. No, it's kind of funny, folks.
Yep. Because one of the reasons why I chose that one was because in my high school years, I actually studied about dreams because I had some really messed up dreams as a kid. So I was all into studying about dreams, and there was a whole belief that you can actually take control of your dreams. And in that movie, in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, the kids that Freddy was going after, they could actually summon abilities. One person who was in a wheelchair could stand up and he could do magic. You
I
had another
remember
one
that.
who was like a badass kind of fighter. Each person kind of had powers because in your dreams you could do about anything. So this was actually, for once, you had the ability to kind of level the playing field against Freddy.
It sounds like The Matrix.
Although
I
it,
knew Kung
although
Fu.
there was that pretty hot scene when the kid that doesn't speak is cornered by the nurse.
Yeah. I remember. I
I'm referring
remember.
about the uncensored version, folks.
Yes, we don't talk about the censored versions here, folks.
But no, Nightmare on Elm Street, because like Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund killed it.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
mind you, the first time I saw Robert Englund was in the V miniseries, which is a sci-fi miniseries, and he kind of played this timid alien. So then suddenly you see like he's just this killer that goes after people, and I wish they would have done more of Freddy before he became. They delved into that a little bit in one movie. I think it was Nightmare on Elm Street 5. I think they delved into it just a little bit.
Yeah, they didn't give us a lot of
Yeah.
lore. It's like, okay, so for those of you that are into lore, the Nightmare on Elm Street movie wasn't really till we got the new Nightmare, and that wasn't not the new Nightmare on Elm Street Part 6. We're talking the new one with Rorschach's character
Yeah.
playing Freddy Krueger, where they kind of delved into the whole fact that
He
Freddy.
just looks like a bad pizza face.
It, I think that I did like his line though when he was like, "Why are you screaming? Why are you crying? I
I
haven't
mean,
even
it
cut
just
you
it
yet."
looks like somebody took an iron and just kind of dragged it across somebody's face.
Th- which I think like just as bad, but I think the concept was I felt like we had gotten so many Nightmare on Elm Street movies that you took so long to give me lore that the
Yeah.
last one, your newest one, gave me lore, but it didn't give me.
I mean, they you know what they could have done, as far as the face, at least visually speaking, they didn't have to make it like Burns. They could have just made like claws on his face, which would add a little bit to his claw hand. You know?
It would have made sense because he did the torturing, right? Like
Yeah.
where he's why are you screaming? I haven't even cut you yet. And then like the kids waking up and
And
freaking out the
it was only
nightmares and
a
stuff.
few years after the last Nightmare on Elm Street, so there was. How do you create a contrast between that? I mean, you just have to reinvent him completely, flip
I
the
think at that
script.
point you have to.
Yeah, but they didn't. You know, so we
Who
did
knows?
that. We did our
Requelitis, requelitis, folks. Be expecting them to at some point. If Hollywood, you ever watch our podcast or listen to it, and a director's like, "I'm going to remake this movie into another sequel," I guarantee you they will figure out a way to give a trilogy into that and remake the series somehow, somewhere, some way.
I mean, you could do a solid movie just on Freddy Krueger's origin.
Which would be an interesting movie. I think it would be very hard now, especially with the very politically correct, like you'd have to represent everybody in this movie. There wasn't
Yeah, I mean,
transgender and
I'm not saying it would be easy.
homosexuality,
I'm not
and
saying it would be easy,
but it'd be
but
good.
well, see, and one thing that they never really delved into was okay, where did Freddy get his abilities from? What brought him back?
And see, that was something that Rick and Morty made the joke about, where they had like the nightmare universe.
Yeah.
It's like, and the thing is he a demon? Like
Well, I mean,
we
they barely touched on a little bit of it because they had like these three demons that kind of like came out of him, and he had no longer had powers. I mean, Freddy Krueger. I mean, you'll laugh at this. There's actually a fan film, a Ghostbusters fan film called Freddy Krueger versus the Ghostbusters,
I believe it.
and it's just what it sounds like. One of the Ghostbusters is having nightmares, and he actually takes on Freddy Krueger.
That's pretty cool.
Ghostbusters based out of Seattle, believe it or not.
Hey,
It's an older fan film, but I mean it's kind of fun. But I mean, like, it's like okay, we know what happened with Jason, that it was his mother, and then after his mother was
and
killed,
Michael Myers,
yeah, and
Rob
Michael
Zombie did
Myers.
a great
You
job
know,
on that.
we get origins of all these. I mean, even the Leprechaun, a Hellraiser, even Hellraiser, Pinhead. We get origins. We didn't get an actual origin of Freddy Krueger. Like, where did these powers manifest? Like what was it? Was some demon like on his shoulder the entire time that he wasn't aware of?
Hell, even Chucky had an origin story.
Chucky kind of had a couple of origin stories.
Well, okay, if we follow the legitimate one, that was Due Deme Dembela, the
Give me the
Satanic
power I
Circle,
beg of thee.
beg of you. Come on, man. Like we all know, like that's like, to me, quintessentially, like that's
Yeah,
Chucky. We know Tiffany, and then we
I
know.
have to watch the series. I haven't watched it.
I've heard it's good. I've never
Yeah,
really watched it, but
I just didn't get around to watching it. But
I think they finished it, actually. I think it did like 3 seasons and they canceled it or
okay,
something like that, or finished it. So it's a short watch. So
so that was my pick. So we're on to action now, I believe, right?
yeah, we are. And I don't. Again, I only did three, but I can.
Okay.
I have so many action movies that I can go for a 4 and a 5. My fifth action movie choice. We're gonna go a little bit modern, and
Our wee Swinky.
I'm gonna go with John Wick. I love
Okay.
John Wick.
John Wick was my number 3.
John Wick is like hands down. My wife does not like John Wick movies. I love her, but she does not. She's
My
making faces in the kitchen. She
okay.
does not like John Wick, but
My wife
I
loves
love it.
John Wick. I mean, she just didn't like the beginning part when his dog
Oh
is. Yeah.
no, the no. It's like my wife understands and can appreciate the concept and the story behind
Yeah.
the characters. She just doesn't like the hyper violence. And for me, I'm all about that story leading him to be a hyper violent character, and I respect. I know my wife just happens to be so loud. Thanks, honey. but yeah, like the
Be careful. She might break out the belt, man. I don't know. I
I
don't
don't
know your
know.
wife. She might come at you.
Dave says you don't need to beat me on live YouTube, babe. She said, "Oh damn,
Okay, listen. It's better not to do it live because there's no evidence.
that's
There's
true.
no video
That's true."
evidence then. Okay.
But honestly, John Wick, just the first three movies, I've yet to see four, and I appreciate Sisu for being in the style of John
Yeah.
Wick. I just
Well,
honestly, I like the concept of a guy that
I
he
will
tried
say
to turn his
this.
life around, and then he gets back into the shit that he
This is
didn't
going to be
want
a
to.
hot take from a lot. A lot of people are going to look at me sideways with this statement.
What are you gonna say?
John Wick, to me, John Wick. If this movie was made 20 years before, it would have starred Chuck Norris.
Charles Bronson? Hell no. Charles Bronson would have been the one to do it if it was in the 80s. Charles Bronson, because Murphy's Law, bro. Murphy's Law is freaking John Wick. He
John.
would
Well, I
and
mean, you can kind of go Death Wish along the same
Death
vein.
Wish, exactly.
Okay.
Death Wish was all that whole thing.
I mean, but I could see, how Chuck Norris was. Like he didn't have to have guns or anything.
Nah, see, John Wick is all about the guns and the military training. You would have had to have had someone like Charles Bronson, maybe even a guy. I don't want to say Sean Claude Van Damme,
He killed
but
someone
like,
with a damn pencil once. Come on.
yeah, but Chuck Norris is that quiet. He's, Walker Texas Ranger. You know, I can't get that out of my head. Like he is his own meme. Chuck Norris is his own meme.
I
Can we
mean,
all agree with that, chat?
Lone Wolf McQuade
I mean,
missing in action. Delta Force. I mean, we yeah.
if you did this in the '80s, who
Hitman.
would?
I mean, yeah. Chuck Norris.
I don't know who I would have picked for the '80s to do it. Maybe the dude that was in Spencer for Hire,
Robert Urich.
Robert Urich, maybe. I mean, it depends on if
Yeah.
you're looking at something because you got to look at this movie for what it was and what it is now. Like you can't. I think this movie couldn't be translated to 20 years ago because it'd be goofy. Because you'd put like a Stallone or a Schwarzenegger in that role, or maybe a Kurt Russell, because they can fit
Did
that
you ever watch
gritty.
American Ninja? Michael
Hell
Dudikoff.
yes, Michael Dudikoff.
Maybe.
Come on, man.
Uh,
American Ninja.
maybe him because like he can have that calm demeanor.
Yeah.
Maybe, just maybe. I know it's a bit of a stretch, but
It'd be an interesting. I would like to have seen it, but
but
again, that's also
but do you,
you know
do you, do you think young Keanu could have done it?
no. I think Keanu needed to kind of mature from Bill and Ted and Neo
Speed.
in the Matrix and Speed. You know, it's like could a young Brad Pitt have done it? Because after Seven, could Brad Pitt, if you did this in the '90s, could Brad Pitt have stepped in and been John Wick?
I don't know because I mean he's done some pretty powerful stuff. I mean Fight Club.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, could Ed Norton have done it? You know,
Yeah,
like hell, if you look
yeah.
at the '80s, you know who would have probably been John Wick? Steven Seagal.
I was about to say if you would have said Dolph Lundgren, that would have been we.
Hell no, Steven Seagal. You would have had to have his Aikido, Fat
Well,
Man Aikido.
see, Steven Seagal, he's just slow kung fu. He's slow fu.
I call him Fat Man Aikido. I respect him though, because he beat his wife and he got away with that shit. And I don't respect that he did that in any way, shape, or form. I do not respect that he did
Yeah,
that.
but no, no,
But
no.
the fact that he's a
It,
cop now and you
yeah,
beat your wife, like
yeah.
how did that like did Atlanta just go and sweep that shit under the rug and say, yeah, we're gonna make you a sheriff deputy and you can go arrest people that beat their wives, but you beat your wife and it was all over the news.
I mean, who knows? I mean, he has ties to Native American nations because he did. Was the one movie he did?
On
Oh
Deadly
God,
Ground.
Deadly Ground. Because he basically bought his way pretty much into a lot of different groups back then. So
Well, yeah, because he was Steven freaking Seagal, king of the ponytail.
yeah, I mean, like, and also what?
Before before what was it Ian Michael? You had to look at Steven Seagal.
True. Now, my number 5 is one that you and I talked about off camera. Enter the Dragon.
That's my number one.
Enter the Dragon. I mean, Bruce Lee just. I mean, he to some mainstream audiences that was their first real introduction to Bruce Lee.
Mhm.
But I grew up watching, on Sunday afternoons. We had a local station here, Fox 29. They would play just kung fu movies, like the full on samurai flying on wires. That the whole
Oh yeah,
deal.
the Sunday that
I
was on
remember
Sundays, the
watching.
Fox Five.
I
I
remember
remember that
watching like the
Chop Talking
Chinese
Theater.
Connection and just like so many Bruce Lee flicks back then. And yes, I did have to read them because either that or they're very badly dubbed. But I
Master
mean,
of the Flying
Bruce Lee.
Guillotine.
I mean, he's the original action hero. You know, that's how I feel about it.
It's funny that he puts that as his number five, and I put that as my number one. And I mean, I can go down the gamut of movies. Why reasons why Bruce Lee to me is like that. That was it's Bruce Lee. You can't go wrong with it. But number four, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with the Warriors. I
Oh
mean,
yes, come out
come
and
on,
pay.
we got this group and this group and this group all here to make peace. And I love that man. He's like, "Can you dig it?"
I
I
mean,
mean, that movie.
Warriors is. I mean, my brothers were born in 87 and 88, and my brother Tony, who's born in 87, loves the Warriors. Loves that movie.
Hands down one of my favorite movies. Like I've rewatched it
The
plenty of times.
surviving cast members recently got together, like I think a year or two ago, and they actually rode the subway train with wearing their the old vest over their clothes. Just it was like a whole anniversary thing. I'm like, that's just bananas. I mean, there's so many good people in there. Like, was it James Remar from Dexter, and just so many. Like he's been in so much
Just
stuff. He was
everybody
in
that's been
there.
in that, everybody
Yeah,
that was in that movie series, in that movie, grew into some level
their
of prominence within
careers just
they
exploded.
blossomed. And based on a book which a lot of people
Yeah.
didn't know about, which the book was about the gangs and the gang violence in New York City, in the inner cities. Which this was supposed to be like, even though, yeah, granted, you had some of the gangs look really stupid, but
The baseball
you had
ones.
to, the baseball one, that's the one that makes me laugh because those idiots had bats. But yeah, now would a movie like that be very
It
PC
was a
now?
clockwork baseball. Freaking
Yeah,
idiots.
let's be realistic. Could you say that movie be PC now? No.
No, no.
The Warriors is not a PC movie because they use every slur, every de- reg, like every bad term, and that was then. Imagine now. I would love to see a remake of that movie done now
I don't think
in
it
a
would be.
modern
It. I.
time.
I can't see it happening. Respectfully speaking. You know.
Okay, here and this is something. If y'all want to see us do a talk about this, because I can go on a whole reason why you could see this movie happening today and how the gangs. You can explain all the different gangs, not by
Well,
just gender or.
I mean, I would love to see a modern update of it. Don't get me wrong. But realistically speaking, with how everyone is so butthurt over the slightest things,
Oh,
someone
it would
looks
have
at you
hate.
sideways or wears the wrong color shorts, you're getting canceled.
I know,
That's my
and
whole thing.
I think that if you, it'd be interesting to see it done now because kids talk about being hard. I think that would be an interesting movie to like spotlight that. And if you didn't do it, a movie influenced by the Warriors, something where like gangs were involved, like rival gangs, and like because they have a show like that called Ikeburu on Netflix, which is like
Okay.
all these different rival gangs in Japan vying for like a spot, the top spot, and it's
Well,
very
see,
modern.
that's the thing. I could see them successfully making this maybe like in the UK or another country. You
Really,
know.
you couldn't see it in the U.S. I think you could.
Well, I think that the it has to do with the visuals, how it's viewed. I mean, if you go into other countries, some of the culture itself is different. You know,
True.
some of the slurs may not come off like it would here. So you might have something that would perform better, or might be received as far as it's being filmed, as it's being produced, maybe in other countries, in different settings. You know, because
I
someone
don't disagree.
will look at it in this way opposed to this way. I mean, here well, I'll be honest. Here in the states, we get so many people that are butthurt if they're looking at a certain car, or someone is tying their left shoe instead of before they do the right shoe. I mean, you get the smallest things trigger people. There's so many Karens and Kyles out there that
Truth.
it's the smallest things that will trigger people. Okay, like me, someone could be watching this and they see boxes right behind me. You're like, well, what's this guy's problem? You know,
I'm
it's it's
triggered.
it's like the smallest things will trigger someone.
You true.
You know,
Okay.
I mean that. I mean, I will love this. There's a lot of movies that are, let's just say, like you said, there's a lot of words, a lot of terminology. If you try doing that now, you'd be getting your ass canceled.
I don't disagree, and that's something I think if you guys would like to hear us do like a breakdown of like the Warriors, like actually trying to discuss it and like see if you could do a modern adaptation, let us know in the comments or in the chat right now.
Well,
So what's your number
I'll
4?
I'll throw this out there. Not only could we do a breakdown, but we could even do where, okay, let's say we find the Warriors is on Netflix or Amazon Prime or something. Okay, we do a watch, but all people are seeing is us reacting on screen, and we can invite other people to react on screen with us. You're watching it off screen, and we could do it like that, like a watch party, and we
Hey,
could
if
get
anybody's
people's,
interested in that, we
you know,
love doing that. I love watch parties. So
we
if you guys are
we
down for
could
that,
definitely do something like that. We can
and
even
that's a
do a
classic.
few horror films too with that. So,
True.
uh, my number 4, I also told you this one off camera, is Rumble in the Bronx, Jackie Chan. I'm a big listen. I love Jackie Chan. Pretty much, I'll be honest. Before he went mainstream with Chris Tucker, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Rush Hour, but before then, I mean, he really like. Some people, if you're not a Jackie Chan fan, you don't know that he broke his foot during filming.
Yep, and they had to paint the
They
shoe,
they had
the
a
Reebok
sock.
that he was
They
wearing.
had a sock
Yeah.
that they would put over his foot. He literally jumps from one building across the street over onto the fire escape of the one right across from it. He did that, and that's how he broke his foot. But I mean, like he does his own stunts. I mean, the guy, Jackie Chan. I mean, like the story is, he's coming to his uncle. I think his uncle's getting married, and he's going to sell their little supermarket that they have. And there's these rival gangs, and there's a kid in a wheelchair and some diamonds, and it all just like you got to realize Jackie Chan movies, they weren't the greatest stories. They didn't make a lot of sense, but
Oh no, Police Story. Hello,
no, but I mean, think of a
Operation
lot of his stuff.
Condor.
Okay, there's a lot of his stuff where some of the stories are pretty convoluted
No,
though.
they're hokey. They're all
You know,
hokey and they're funny. Yeah, I give you
and
that.
then
But
and
I'm
then he did,
they're
like, he did stuff like Twin Dragons, and he did Tuxedo with Jennifer Love
oh,
Hewitt. He did
Jennifer Love
some kind of
huge, huge
cheesy
boobs.
ones, like Around the World in 80 Days. I
Oh
mean,
well, don't forget you could go with oh God, what was that one he did with Owen Wilson?
oh, Shanghai Noon.
Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights.
Yeah, I mean, those are. I'm not saying they're not enjoyable, but some of his better stuff is before because he came to the U.S.
Drunken Fist,
Yeah, Drunken Master.
the Drunken Master. Yeah,
Yep.
Legend of the Drunken Master. I
I
mean, that
mean,
was
he
fantastic.
he did a lot of great stuff. But Rumble in the Bronx is always a favorite of mine because I
Yeah, it was one of
remember
the first I
that
ever
was
going to see
that was
it.
the first Jackie Chan movie I saw in the theaters, because it was actually playing in the theaters. Because like at least here in Buffalo, we didn't have like how some people have like an older movie house that they can just go and watch kung fu movies. We didn't have that here.
Oh, I lived in the Bronx, and I saw Rumble in
Okay,
the Bronx. Ironically enough, in the
in the
Bronx when I
Bronx,
lived.
nice.
Yeah, so it was like my dad. I remember my dad and I went to go
10
see it.
points. There you go.
Yeah, see, and I remember going to see it at this movie theater, and then a few months later, that same theater started dipping its foot and started showing older Jackie Chan movies,
Okay.
and we that's how we saw Operation Condor, Police Story
I
1,
used
Police Story
I
2,
used to
Police
have
Story
those on
3.
DVD. Like I was for a short minute, I was like, we had a place called Borders Books,
Hmm.
and you could order obscure movies. Like I actually got El Mariachi on DVD.
Folks, that's the original,
Okay,
original El
forget
Mariachi,
forget Desperado. The original is El Mariachi.
and
So I
Once
mean,
Upon a
like,
Time in Mexico.
yep. But see, we didn't have any houses to watch the old kung fu movies, so that was like the first time I got to see Jackie Chan on the big screen. Though, I mean, I watched them on you know the small screen, but I mean that's my number four. What's your number three?
Well, my number 3 is a pop culture icon. Pop culture icon.
I don't remember Michael Jackson being in an action movie.
Yippee ki motherfucker.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Die Hard.
That's my number.
Die.
That's my number one.
Die Hard is by far one of my absolute favorite action movies. It is translated into every pop culture. They've done spoofs of it. They've
Well,
done
I
In
mean,
Living Color, Saturday Night Live, Mad TV. Every sketch comedy show did a spoof on it, and
yeah, but I
even the
mean,
Yippee Ki
a lot of people see. A lot of people have to take a look at the context of that. To be honest,
Gotta come
just
to the
like in
coast, have a
1989,
couple of laughs.
no, just in 1989, there's a lot of people who got that side eye, who got that what when Michael Keaton, he went from being Mr. Mom and Gung Ho and was doing all these comedies, and he stepped into being Batman. Same thing with Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis
Moonlighting.
had wrapped up Moonlighting with Sybil Shepherd. Okay,
Yeah,
and then he
friggin'
goes from Moonlighting to this action movie, and he kills it. And thanks to Die Hard, his signature was that scream, was that "Ah!" that yell, that scream of his was his signature, because we talked about Fifth Element, and we hear him do that same scream when he's holding on to Lilu when she's releasing the energy. It's Die Hard is just. I mean, not only is he,
it's a Christmas movie.
yeah, there are discussions out there. I consider it a Christmas movie.
I do too.
It takes
It's
place
on
during
my
Christmas,
list.
okay?
It's Nakatomi Plaza. It's a Christmas movie, folks.
And
Fight me on that.
it's not Christmas until Hans hits the ground, okay?
Facts.
But I mean, it's not only is this an action movie, not only do you have one person against like a small army of terrorists, but the man's doing it barefoot,
On
barefoot
glass.
on glass, crawling through.
Glass.
Yeah, like you said, come to the coast, have a party, have a few laughs.
Hey,
And come
look,
on,
come on, man. He did a great job.
and his sidekick is Carl Winslow.
Come on, folks. TV Dad.
Before
TV Dad.
now, now here, I'm gonna blow your mind a little bit. Um, can you think of any other movies where he's played a cop?
Bruce Willis or Carl Winslow?
Carl Winslow.
Die Hard 1, Die Hard 2. Um, those are the only ones I remember.
What do I have behind me right here?
Back to the Future. Oh, Ghostbusters.
He was the cop in Ghostbusters when they are in jail, and says, "Ghostbusters, Mary wants to see you." That's him.
Look at that. Transferred.
He
He
was
transferred from
typecast as a cop.
California. Look, he got
Typecast as a
transferred
cop,
from
man.
there. Look, they transferred him from from
He,
Nakatomi.
he was like, they got ghosts here in New York City. I'm out. I'm going
Yeah, he went.
California.
He went to the coast to have a couple laughs.
Twinkies and donuts.
Oh God, I love that. So obviously with Die Hard, you got to hit me with what's yours. Go now.
Okay, well, I had picked my number 3 was John Wick. My number 1 is Die Hard, because I mean that's, to me, that's just, it's just, you get this cop who's insurmountable odds. His wife. He goes to the coast to see his wife. They're estranged. Things are very rocky. And then he finds that she's going by her maiden name. That's just gonna piss you off even more, motherfucker. You ask me, you're not even using my last name now. What?
And the kids with the Spanish nanny. We had the Mexican. We
Yeah.
had the abuelita taking care of the
Oh,
kids.
another Ghostbuster actor in that movie, William Atherton, who was
Look
the
at that,
reporter who gets knocked out.
folks.
That
That is some.
douche.
Look at the '80s where you can just pull that right there and just
Well,
say that.
he was in so many different movies. I mean, he was in Biodome. He was in Real Genius with Val Kilmer. I mean, he was the '80s douche. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
Uh,
he was.
my number three was John Wick, of course. We know what my number one was with Die Hard. So my number two, don't hate me for this. This is a guilty friggin' pleasure of mine. Featuring two action icons of the '80s, Tango and Cash.
Cash. I just heard
Okay,
somebody
Kurt
recently talk about this.
Russell and Sylvester Stallone,
Terry
two cops
Hatcher.
from two separate ends of the town. You know, they're not partners, but they're great at taking down some crime syndicates and drug dealers, and they get set up and sent to prison, and they're in prison together. I mean, and come on, Stallone's sister.
Dude, Terry Hatcher, pre Desperate Housewives. Yes. Yummy, 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 yummy. I can't go wrong with that. I
Fresh out of appearing on several episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation and MacGyver. She had a recurring character on MacGyver back in the day. Like you said before, she was on Lois and Clark: The Adventures of Superman.
and then
Uh,
eventually Desperate Housewives.
yeah,
As the lead actress before Ava
and
Longoria took over.
she was once in an action movie co-starring with Andrew Dice Clay called Brain Smasher: A Love Story.
Look at that, folks. Look at that. Look at the references we can hit you with. We hit you in that nostalgia. We give you that. We just
No,
won't
that's
give you
just
the
I'm
one
just
two.
really great at obscure movies. Uh, but I mean, you get them like they're two. Sylvester Stallone is the straight by the book, stockbroker. He's got the suspenders, the glasses, like he's super smart. And you get Kurt Russell as the guy who's just like, yeah, he's
The
Kurt
coffee
Russell.
drinking, the beer swilling.
You
He's
know,
like the Stone Cold Steve
cowboy
Austin.
boots. Like his atypical look. Um, and they are both set up by this crime syndicate, which is like run by Jack Palance from Ripley's Believe It or Not, City Slickers. Like
Wait,
he's
can I tell you? Just I'm gonna pause for a second. I just had this awesome idea hit me. What if you were to take a remake of that movie now and use Stone Cold Steve Austin and Dwayne the Rock? I could totally see Tango and Cash in the two of them.
okay. I would have to say, well, if The Rock still had hair, I would say he could pull off. He could potentially pull off
What? That dude looks great in
Stallone.
the suit. No, put him in a freaking suit. The Rock is ripped. You put him in a good slick old suit, and you have Stone Cold, the Texas Rattlesnake, dude. He would be perfect.
He'd be perfect as Cash.
He'd be
He
perfect as
definitely.
Cash. Beer swilling.
I just don't know about. Well, I don't know about The Rock though. Playing like the analytical type Tango. I just.
Oh, he can. I can see him doing it. The Rock he's got that suave debonair, that attitude that he carries himself.
He's also got a
And
lot
then
of
you see,
drama going on right now.
he does, but so does everybody in the Anoa'i
He
side of that
yeah, his
family.
show just got canceled on NBC, so he's getting a lot of cancellations
Well,
all
because
over the place.
WWE's because they made the move away from NBC Universal.
The XFL and everything, so
Yeah, there's a
yeah.
lot. There's a lot.
So
Well, I mean that leads me to my number two, which is a tie. This is a legitimate tie between Terminator 2 Judgment Day,
okay,
which again crosses genres because it has the
and it
sci-fi.
and it can be considered a master class in action movies.
It is a masterclass. I mean James Cameron, hands down, is the king of knowing how to story tell. I'm gonna tell you folks, if you've never seen this guy, just after watching Titanic and then you see him do Avatar and you see the storytelling that he does.
Okay,
He does know how to weave.
you just lost me. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I lost
I'm
you.
I'm 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 canceling myself now.
He's like, I'm done. This is the Dre show now. But I'm gonna tell you, I think that The fact that he introduced the morphing technology that we now see as the preliminary stuff that was never thought of when we had the Liquid Terminator, and then you have the T-100 and the T-1000. You have this deep storyline. Linda Hamilton, I mean, she was the '90s Sigourney Weaver to Aliens. This was Linda Hamilton was that to the Terminator franchise,
Yeah.
and I think that hands down that was just it kept you interested, it kept you vibrant,
And
and I
by the way,
loved it.
Brie Larson, yeah, those two were the first female action heroes. So just shut yourself up and go back in the corner, Brie. Okay,
Exactly,
sit
yeah. Like
down,
when I
Brie.
keep there's so much people want to talk about, but I think that now obviously what's the other side of this coin, right? Because people ask Dre, they're like, well, what's the other side? Well, the other side of that coin is the Last Dragon, Bruce
Leroy.
Leroy. I'm the
I was
Shogun
debating
of
putting that on
Harlem.
my list. I was
It had to
debating
make
putting
my
that on my
list
list.
because, folks,
Kiss my
everybody again,
Converse.
kiss the Converse.
Kiss my Converse, Cooley.
Now, you again, that movie, we cannot say half of the things that were said in that movie because you had drag, homosexuals, everybody, right? But to me, I don't care.
You had
It
a
was a
white
good
Mr. T?
movie. Yeah, no, I love my favorite was when the drag queen got up and was like, "Oh, go get him, baby, go get him,
No, no,
baby," and the dude, the heavyset Bruce
not the
Lee
face,
dude got up.
not the nose.
Yeah, oh no, and then he did that. He's like, "I'm the king of Harlem,
Yeah,
Bruce
but
Leroy."
we have kung fu royalty in that movie.
Mako, no, not Mako wasn't in that movie. It was
Ernie Reyes
Ernie
Jr.
Reyes Jr., who we all know as Michelangelo. Actually, sorry, I lie. He was Donatello in the suit. He was out
And
of the
he was
suit,
Kino
and
in
he was Kino.
which, by the way, those toy collectors who might be watching, the NECA Kino figure is going to be coming out sometime this year, I believe.
Yep, I saw that. Looks
But I
dope.
mean, he was in the Rundown because you mentioned The Rock earlier. He was in the Rundown.
I'm on a bratwakara.
I mean, it's Last Dragon. I mean, as an '80s person, you guys have heard me say I'm a big soundtrack person. The
Vanity.
soundtrack was killer
That
because
my wife laughs.
it wasn't the Last Dragon. It was Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon because
Dragon.
Motown fronted the money for that movie. That was something that really was that was something that was a little bit different back in the '80s, where you had an actual music label fronting money for a movie. The only other time we had that was Def Jam for Crush Groove. The Barge.
Come on, man. I can play that because I know they'll try to
I mean,
demonetize us.
we had more than one actor in that movie that only went by one name because we had Vanity.
T-Mock.
Yep, and he's still in good shape now, man.
God, that guy is 67, I think,
Yep.
and he looks in great shape. He
There was
doesn't do a lot
rumors
of
of a
conventions.
like a reboot
A
or a
remake,
sequel
a
being
requel.
done,
Yeah, I've heard a requel that
but
they've been wanting to requel it.
never never saw the light of day.
The only reason it hasn't rematerialized is because they said there was a lot of like there was funding issues, there was director issues, there was a couple of things, and then T-Mock wanted to they people wanted T-Mock to be reprise Bruce Leroy, and they said that he didn't want to
I
do
would
it.
have loved to see him as a master
That
teaching
see
someone
that to
else.
me would have been like if I did it in the modern era,
Yeah,
I would have had him. T-Mock would have been the master who had gone, like he left Brooklyn,
yeah.
comes back to Brooklyn, and that his kids, because Ernie Reyes could be in that movie, and he would have
Yeah.
taken over the school.
Well, you know
There's
what?
so many cool things you could do in that movie
You
to
could
to
even make it
show it.
without Timac and have Ernie as a master.
I mean, hell, even if T-Mock didn't want to do it, you get Ernie Reyes. I mean, there's so much that you can still
Yeah,
do
I mean,
because
there.
even the lady that did the white lady that was the bad singer, she's still alive today.
Yeah, yeah, she
You could
was.
even have
She
her.
actually co-starred with Michael J. Fox on Spin City for a number of years.
So there's a lot.
So
There's a lot that can be done. And, again, it's just one of those movies that I can rewatch, leave it in the background. I know the words.
Last Dragon 2, The Revenge of Eddie Arcadian.
Oh my God, Eddie Arcadian had a kid. Imagine if he had a kid and you put it in the
Probably
modern
did. He
era.
was a sleazebag, you know.
I
Yeah,
was,
just
I
saying.
mean, you could do a lot of cool stuff, and I mean, it's one of those movies that you could probably do, but you'd have to be
Well,
very careful.
what if you Cobra Kai'd it just a little bit?
Oh,
Okay.
I would love that if you did it as a
No,
TV. Imagine a
no,
TV
no, no, no,
series.
no. Hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. We're gonna Cobra Kai it. This is what we're gonna do. Okay. You don't see where I'm going with this.
Oh no,
Okay.
I'm liking where it's going.
Leroy's dojo takes in a new student who is the Shogun's child, child or
Ooh.
grandchild. Let's just say. Okay.
Probably grandchild, we'll say.
Okay. So now this, we got this whole thing. So you could really switch it up because and then like Ernie Reyes or Timac find out that the lineage, you know, and it might be a nice way to do a nod to Julius Curry the third, who played
Shogun.
Shogun, because we
Yeah,
lost him back in I want to say the late '90s due to
yeah.
cancer.
He would have been. I think that would be a great nod to have someone like him, in there, like where you'd have his son
Yeah,
would have been like the guy that takes over, and you know, there's a lot of cool things, and I think I would love to do kind of a like a Cobra Kai edition episode. And again,
yeah,
folks, this is part of why we love doing this show. When Dave and I came together, we wanted to talk not just sci-fi but nostalgia, it's the fact when you love something so much as I saw him, and then he was just not getting the viewership that he wanted, and there was just not a lot of interest, and there was other stuff going on. I felt like, why can't I get my brother to help? I'm going to help my brother out, and how can I help my brother out and do something fun? And this is what it is. So when you want ideas like this, or stuff to talk about, these are the things that go through our brains on the regular. Dave and I text every day, and I always have crazy ideas, and we spit back and we start showing each other stuff, and this is what makes it fun and the good synergy. So yeah, we went over our hour time limit that we were going to do, but
yeah.
that's all right. It's our first
We went
episode,
almost 2 hours.
but that's good. It's our first episode, so we want you guys to enjoy it, and we had to give you the full lists. So let's give you a little bit of a rundown of what to expect, not just content wise, but just to kind of know what we're going to be doing. Every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, we will have a YouTube live. When we have the live, you guys can join in and participate. We're not going to be a guest driven show. We're not going to be
Nope.
that kind of like, oh, we have to have guests on. Those are kind of, I like to relegate those to the other friends that we have, that other YouTubers that are doing that stuff. This is more of like, we want to interact with you guys. You guys are really why we got together to do this. So if there's a topic you want to talk about, and if we do bring guests on, it's going to be you guys,
Mhm.
but we're not going to do that right now. That's something we're
No.
looking at down the road. So just getting our feet wet. The episodes are going to be tied to a theme within the sci-fi, horror, or action genres. So Dave and I come up with the idea, we spitball it to you guys, and then on to the next episode. So next week, you guys will catch us here, 8 p.m. Eastern to 9 p.m. Eastern time. Now we're going to then be uploading this to all podcasting
Well,
websites.
as soon as we can, because most podcast websites, well, they want a little cheddar.
Yeah, they
But
want a little bit of.
YouTube has its own platform, and I'm checking a few other platforms. So we're going to be doing everything we can. Whatever platform we upload to, we'll make you aware of that, and we will make sure that all episodes are available.
Yes, so
Okay.
you guys will know what we do and when we upload. If you guys have any suggestions for topics, drop a comment, message us, go to our Instagrams, go to our personal
And
Instagrams if you can't reach us
also,
there.
in the video description below, you'll find the links to both Dre and mine's separate YouTube channels, separate from the podcast.
Which we still do our own content.
Yes.
So just so you guys know, this is a group, this is a brother project that we put together to do something fun. This is not something that we just hodgepodge together. We took weeks. This was something we discussed several weeks ago. Actually, I would say this was discussed back in February, and we haven't even touched the stuff that we're doing now in May, and we're getting towards June. So you can look forward to a lot of cool stuff that we have coming down the pipe. We are going to be doing a lot of more interesting
I
topics,
mean, come on,
and
this logo just didn't appear yesterday, so
yeah, folks, this logo wasn't something that was like, oh, really think about it and come up with some really cool shit. And I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode. Yes, it is not going to always be 2 hours long, it'll be an hour long because we do know that you guys have other things to do. And I know that we overran some time on some other YouTubers' shows, so I apologize to the other YouTubers that were going live. That if we affected your viewership in any which way, we weren't trying to do it on purpose.
Yeah.
It's just when it's the first episode, it happens, and that's how it's gonna be. So tune in to us on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, not to 9. You guys will catch us. Dave and I will post, and I wish I could see the comments because
And
I can't.
please, everybody, share this on your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter. If you're on Mastodon, whatever social platforms you have, share it on Facebook. Smoke signals, whatever you got going on. Get the word out. We want to grow this podcast because, I mean, obviously, if we, when anyone starts something, yeah, it's about having fun, but also we kind of want to see where we can take this with because you just never know. I mean, like Dre said, we will welcome guests eventually down the line, but who knows? We might even make some connections to get some special guests in here. Could happen. You
Exactly.
never know.
And I do have a lot of connections here in Charlotte to a lot of local people that do are into these areas and that have been actors, makeup designers, musicians that have worked on these various movies. I just haven't done any of that because I don't want to muddle the YouTube waters yet. Like I want to do our thing. Let's establish our names and then bring on the guests that are further established in their said communities. So again, folks, I welcome you guys to the portal, but Dave and I are going to portal out.
Yes, sir.
So that's what we got to do. So my friends, make sure you watch what portals you walk through because you may not know where you're going to end up on the other side. We'll see you there.
Take care, guys.